very key points from the Prime Minister's speech, and of course helping us decode that is Mr. Anant Swarup. He's the Secretary General at FICCI. Thank you very much, Mr. Swarup, for joining us here on ET Now. You did hear the Prime Minister's speech wherein he was touching upon the 7 key pillars of Viksit Bharat, of what India's strategy is going to be. What in your assessment is going to be the key priority, the near-term priority for the Indian government? He did speak about, pharma. He did speak about semiconductors, energy. He spoke about AI, trade, and a whole lot that he covered in his speech. But what is going to be the government's focus area of priorities in the near term?
Let me begin by wishing you and all viewers a very happy Independence Day. I think the Prime Minister's speech today is very inspiring. It clearly lays out a roadmap for India's journey towards Viksit Bharat. As the Prime Minister mentioned, this journey of Viksit Bharat is not only one individual's journey, it is an aspiration of 1.4 billion Indians, and all have to work together to achieve this target of Viksit Bharat. I think 2-3 things which he talked about are very big. One, he talks about that Indians should now think big. The time for incremental changes is gone. And if we have to achieve a developed India by 2047, we have to think big. We need to scale up our ambitions. The second big point which he made was that we require a new mindset, a new work culture, which is based on ambition, which is based on ease of implementation. And that would be essential if we need to go to a developed economy by 2047. And third important point which he talked about is on global targets, where he mentioned that now Indian industry should start looking at producing global champions rather than just getting focused on the domestic market. So these, for me, are 3 big, clear messages which his speech gave out today. Regarding the points which you mentioned, that what needs to be done, I think all those 7, the Saptadhara which he mentioned, all are very relevant and all 7 are very timely. If India has to reach a developed nation economy, these 7 are the levers which are must for India to work on to reach the aspirational target of a developed India.
Absolutely, Mr. Swarup. So now, since you spoke about the key takeaways, the key thrust areas of the Prime Minister's speech, let me ask you, are these encouraging enough for the private sector to step on the gas and increase its capex contribution? Because the government has been doing the heavy lifting over the past couple of years.
You are absolutely right. Now with the Prime Minister's speech, I think the onus is on both. The onus is on the industry as well as is on the government. The Prime Minister also talked about the ease of doing business. He also talked about the change of mindset. I think it is needed on both sides of the equation. At the ground level, at the state level, at the cutting edge level, there needs to be much more ease of doing business. And on the businesses side, Indian businesses also need to think big, start taking more risks, and making products which are of quality, global standards, and of scale. And it has to be globally competitive to be able to make a mark in the international market.
Right, Mr. Swarup, and quality remains a key thrust area even as we move forward with, of course, our aim to not just present India's products to the globe, but, of course, doubling down on manufacturing. And we do know that, PLI scheme is currently operating across 14 sectors, but we need to go beyond PLI to sort of build a components ecosystem right here, to build domestic value chain. What are the kind of policy changes that are needed that the government needs to bring in to ensure that happens over the next couple of years, because the global environment is completely disruptive and it's fast changing?
Yeah, one, of course, the learning from the developments over the last few years is that uncertainty is now the new normal, and it is going to be there. Therefore, the industry has to talk about resilience in supply chains. Industry has to look at alternative markets. You cannot be dependent only on one market, be in terms of market or in terms of your sourcing. So that's one big lesson for the industry through the development which have taken place over the last few years. Next learning, I think, is if you look at the China story, it started with low cost, low quality products, but it has now graduated into high tech, better quality, better products, global scale. I think that's the journey the Indian industry should also take. They should start looking at high quality. The Honorable Prime Minister talked about quality, quality, quality to be the driving mantra for the times to come. I think there is a need for Indian industry also to start looking at and start investing into research and development, into innovation, into better product development. And that is going to give us scale, and that is going to give us a competitive advantage over our competitors.
Right, Mr. Swarup, while we talk about, reform, that was a key word in the Prime Minister's speech, and he said that reforms cannot be delayed and we need to build on the momentum of reforms that's been achieved till now. He said that reforms need to be accelerated. So what are the three or five key reforms that the government needs to undertake immediately and something that it cannot delay? What would be the industry's ask of the government with respect to reforms in the near future?
That's a very important question which you have raised. A lot of reforms have taken place. GST is one big reform that has actually unified the entire Indian market. However, the industry continues to feel that a lot of work is still needed at the ground level. It is at the states level. It is at the municipality level where there is a need for much more reforms, much more simplification. The requirements of approvals, the requirements of data, the inspections, that needs to go away. So what the industry needs is that there should be an effective single window where they can go put in their application and then all approvals are taken care of. They need not go to department by department, door by door. And that itself would be a major, major reform. And that would provide a lot of ease of doing business in the country. And I'm sure with such initiatives, the Indian industry would also start looking at all states investing and moving towards a Viksit Bharat.
Right, sir. So while you sort of present your wish list, let me also get in your thoughts on FTAs that India is striking with, countries across the globe. We do have FTAs with nearly 40 countries. The Prime Minister spoke about that. And of course, the Commerce and Industry Minister has spoken about how these FTAs are high quality FTAs because we have done these FTAs with some of the developed economies across the globe. But what kind of value unleashing will happen? And for value to, get unleashed not on an incremental basis, but on an exponential basis, what would be the industry's ask, in terms of hand-holding MSMEs, hand-holding companies to sort of capitalize on these FTAs that the government is doing?
I think the major shift that has taken place over the last 4 or 5 years on FTAs is earlier FTAs were mostly with competing economies, ASEAN, South Asia. They were also producing almost similar products what India was producing, and they were also competing in the same markets of US and EU. The major shift that has taken place now is that India is entering into more and more FTAs with developed economies. And we see a lot of complementarities between the economies, say, of a European Union or a US or a UK, vis-a-vis the Indian economy. What we produce, they need, and what they produce, we need. I think that is the shift which has taken place. But only signing of FTAs would not help. Developed economies are big markets, but they are also quality conscious markets. Those are markets where there are strong regulations, and the Indian industry needs to meet those standards. Only then they will be able to make a dent in those markets. So the help which we think would be needed is how do we reduce the cost of compliance to those standards, especially for MSMEs. We will encourage the government to enter more into mutual recognition agreements with those countries so that my cost of compliance, my testing cost, my inspection cost gets reduced, and I'm able to get those tests done within India. That would also boost confidence in our industry, especially MSMEs, that their goods, once they land, at the borders of those FTA partners would not get rejected. So MRAs, quality testing laboratories, the ecosystem on testing, I think that is all would be needed for Indian industry to capitalize on the opportunities which these FTAs have created.
Okay, so let me ask you one more question on, a key aspect that the Prime Minister touched upon. He said that the youth of this country is going to be the biggest beneficiary of Viksit Bharat, the developed India 2047, Viksit Bharat 2047. But is the private sector confident that you'll be able to create that many number of jobs, even though India is taking giant strides, whether it's in renewable energy, whether it's in, technology, it's in semiconductors, EVs? Do you think the private sector is going to create enough jobs? Because he said that we're going to be, doubling down on skilling, and we do have skilling missions in the country at the moment. But give us the industry's perspective on job creation.
See, Prime Minister has talked about a lot of things, and those are all very important things for the Indian economy. He talks about promoting manufacturing. Manufacturing is going to create jobs. He talks about agriculture. He talks about agro-processing that are going to create jobs, not only in tier 1 cities, they are going to create jobs in rural areas. He is talking about energy transition. That is going to create jobs, not only in India, they are going to create jobs abroad as well. Because as the world transitions through a green energy, they would be requiring more maintainers, more engineers. The Prime Minister also talks about defense. That's another area where there is a tremendous potential. I think the private sector is already investing a lot into developing new technologies, setting up new production centers. That is also going to create jobs. The Prime Minister also talks about the blue economy. I think the fishermen community, there is a lot of scope so far as the coastal states are concerned. He also talks about soft power. He talks about services. I think the Prime Minister has talked about almost all sectors of the economy. The Indian industry is very, very bullish on this. Indian industry feels there are opportunities, not only Indian opportunities that exist, but with the FTAs, there are global opportunities that are existing. And the more we invest, not only in manufacturing, the more we invest in human capital in India, there are going to be jobs not only for Indians in India, but for Indians globally as well.
Right, sir, and we'll be closely watching, that very important story around private capex and how that gets unleashed. You're, of course, sounding very confident on that, but we have time for one final question. What, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge that India could face on the road to Viksit Bharat 2047?
I think the biggest roadblock India could face is complacency. If India or Indians continue to believe that without any effort, without a big thinking, we will reach the road to Viksit Bharat or to a developed nation by 2047. It is not going to happen. Viksit Bharat 2047 would happen only collectively if we are all, the government, the industry, the people, together work towards it and achieve. As the Honorable Prime Minister said, we all have to think big. We all have to think in scale. We all have to think differently. Only then we would be able to achieve Viksit Bharat.
Absolutely, sir. Very well summed up. And on that note, thank you very much for joining us here once again. Anant, sir, it's always a pleasure speaking with you and getting your perspectives on what the industry is thinking and, of course, the way forward for the industry. Thank you very much, and a happy Independence Day to you too.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to step into a very short commercial break, but we will be right back. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned to ET Now.